In this video, I'll demonstrate how to create various kinds of charts using Excel. I'm going to start with the examples from your book, and the very first thing they do is create a pie chart. So I want to see the total of sales, I guess, of each of these types of products. And so the number one thing you need to do when you're creating your chart is not to forget to select the labels that you're going to see on the chart. So in this case, I want to grab these labels in addition to the numbers. After you've made your selection, there's a button here called Quick Analysis, and that is one way that you can start creating your chart. Is it will come up with the list of the different kinds of charts, and you can see as I scroll through it, it will show you what that chart will look like. So in this case, as I mentioned, we're doing a pie chart, so I could just click on that. I tend not to use it only because that's a new feature, and I'm so used to all the old versions of Excel that it's my habit to always run up to the insert ribbon after I've selected it. And here's the charts group. And so I tend to always use this, but that is a pretty cool thing that you can just run right here with the Quick Analysis and grab your chart. So up here you can grab pie and then recognize there's different kinds of pie charts. So in this case, we're just going to do the 2D pie. Once you have your chart created, you can then, with the four-headed arrow, move it to wherever you want. And you can also resize it by grabbing the resizing handles and making it as big or as small as you want. Now, once you have your chart created, there are chart elements that I can add to this chart. And no matter whether this is a column, a line, histogram, or whatever, when you select the chart, you're going to see these three buttons pop up, and this plus button is the one that will let you add chart elements, and depending on the kind of chart you may get a different list here. But right now our legend is showing down at the bottom. I can click on that and the legend would be completely gone. I click on it again, it shows back up. This time it's on the right. Well, how did it do that? If you hit this arrow next to that element, you can see some of my choices. So right, top, left, bottom, and then you also have more options, and this is going to be true on a lot of the features. You'll see this more options. When you hit that, it opens up a formatting pane on the right side of your Excel, and then again you can see your top, bottom, right, left, but in addition you will see three more buttons in this formatting pane, and so you play around with those and it allows you to, for instance, fill this legend if you wanted to. I could do a gradient fill, and then it asks you what are the two different colors and how do you want to reset it, and all of these features that I'm not going to get into. And then you can, at the very bottom down here, if you can see it, do I want to add a border around this? I could do a solid line border, and then I can decide the width, the type of line it's going to be. It could be a double line. And there's just so many different features, and quite honestly, the best way to learn them is to look around, is to hunt and peck, or else my video would be 2 hours long if I sit there and tried to demonstrate every little feature. And we're, by the way, we're just on the legend. We're going to have a pane like this for every chart element that you can select. You'll have a full pane with three different options. Now, very often you'll see on pie charts is the percentage of the total. Remember, that's the whole purpose of a pie chart. And I want to see that value sitting out next to each piece of pie. So I'm going to hit my chart element, and those are called data labels. So I will turn that on, and by the way, where do you want them? Center, inside, outside, data callout looks like that. Okay, and then if you want to do something different, you can hit more options. And again, now notice this says format data labels, or previously it said format legend. And now with these data labels, I can decide, I'm going to go to this one, label options. And one of the things, right now it's showing me the values, 178, and there's 44 and 20. I am going to, rather than show the value, show the percentage. And notice the percentage doesn't have to be calculated in your data. All you have to do is grab the totals, and Excel's smart enough to calculate the percentage for you. And very often I will put my data labels outside the end like that. Okay. And one more thing I'll show you is very often, rather than having a legend so that somebody always has to look at a pie color and then run over to the legend, I will add the category name, and so now I can see the category and its percentage. If I do that, then I will select the legend and hit delete, because you don't need the information twice, right? Try to keep your information or your charts clutter free. Show what you need to show, but don't duplicate it. So now I have all of the information. As a general rule of thumb, a chart should always have a title. Somebody should be able to read the title of the chart and understand what they're looking at. So obviously I can type, in this case it's sales by pack type. So I'll hit enter or click out, and so there's my chart title. And by the way, that's an element, chart title, so you can turn that on or turn it off. Oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. So come back, sales by chart type or pack type. Okay, something else you can format here. Like I said, everything is formattable, if that's a word. Can be formatted, it's probably better English. I'm going to click on this white area and notice what it says up here, format chart area. If I click on the whole pie, that's formatting the data series, and then if I click again, I'm only selecting this one piece of pie. And now that's formatting the data point. Okay, if I click on that, I'm formatting the data labels. If I click again, I'm thinking I'm formatting just this one label. So you can just get carried away to the nth degree here, formatting all of these different elements. So for instance, I may want to take that label and have it solid fill the same color as the pie, or maybe a gradient fill, right? Or then I could take this label and gradient fill. Oh, it took blue, so then I'd have to run over here and start changing the colors. I don't want to spend too much time doing this, but anyway, you get the point. Format chart area, I think your book has you do that a lot, so I clicked on this. Format chart area, and again, my paint bucket, I can go solid fill and maybe make it a much lighter color. Now what happens if this format pane goes away? So you've hit the X, it's gone, and now I want to format the chart title. Well, one way you can do that, every time you create a chart, you get 2 brand new context sensitive ribbons based on the chart. Okay, well, one of these ribbon elements is format, and within the format you will see right here format selection. So every time I click on something, so right there it's the title, it says chart title. If I click on this yellow area, it says chart area. I could format the chart area. If I click on the pie, it's series 1. I could format that. So you get the idea. I will click on the title and say format that selection, and here comes my pane again with format chart title and the various things that I could do to the chart title. Another thing that you can do, rather than individually formatting all of these elements, is again on the ribbon, the chart ribbon, there's one called design, and there are predefined designs for a pie chart. And so a lot of times they're quick and easy and look just as good as what you would do yourself. And so anyway, you can choose a pre-formatted design and choose to use that. Now in this case, it put my legend back even though I have my data labels. And so I would have to make a choice. Do I want the legend? Do I want the labels? But don't leave duplicate data. So I'm going to select it and hit delete on the keyboard. And one more thing, there's another under the design ribbon, another item called layout. And so it makes the decision, do you want labels? Do you want the legends? Where do you want the legend? And so it's not dealing with colors and backgrounds, but it's just what elements, chart elements do you want? And it'll do a quick layout rather than running over here and adding those things individually. Now a couple other buttons when you select a chart. We've already talked about adding elements through this. Here's one that will basically, we talked about that design ribbon up here a second ago. Well, this is a shortcut way to see some of the various designs, and then you can choose your color scheme. So right now we've got this one, but I could do a more monochromatic one. This is something if you're going to print your chart. You probably, the colors, if you don't have a color printer, obviously aren't doing you any good. So a monochromatic scheme will just make it various shades of the same color so that it prints black and white and looks a little better. And then finally, you can filter your chart right here. So I can say, I don't want to see the school element in this. And so I can filter on that, I think. Looks like you just have to hit the apply button when you do that. So I'll hit the filter. You can turn on or off an element, and then when you're done, you hit apply, and then of course school has come off our chart. And the last thing I'll show you about pie charts is if I wanted to explode a single piece of pie, maybe the external frame pack here because it's the smallest slice, what you need to do is, for some reason my Excel is not working right. Okay, what you need to do is select the pie once. And when you do, notice the entire pie is selected. And then you got to click a second time to select that individual slice. So that's the tricky part. 2 selections. Once will give you the whole pie. The second will do the individual piece. Now I can click and drag out that piece. I don't know why that just happened. I'm not sure what was wrong with my chart. I just recreated it real quick. But now, if I select the whole pie, an individual piece, I think I can get just that one piece to slide out. That's what's supposed to happen, not the next piece over. Okay, now I'll demonstrate some more chart features by creating a clustered column chart. And in this example in your book, we're going to place all the charts on this financial summary page, but the chart that we want to create is the total revenues and expenses for each year. We'll start the chart on this page and then move it to financial summary. Now, here's the tricky part on this chart. I want to chart the total revenue and the expenses for each year. And what we need to do is to make sure that we're grabbing our labels. I want the words total revenue and I want the words total expenses. So because I want those labels, all of your selections have to be the same size basically. So I'm going to start with the word category and grab years 1 through 10. I'm holding down the control key and now I'll select the total revenue, and I'm holding down the control key again and I'll select total expenses. So that is your selection for creating this chart. So now again, I mentioned I always use the insert ribbon. We're doing a column chart, and don't forget there's different kinds of columns. Here's your 2D, your stacked, and your 100% stacked. In this case, we just want a 2D chart. Notice it says total revenue, total expenses in the legend. I also have year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 through 10 and the x-axis, and then of course I have numeric values for the y-axis. Very often, here's what students will do. One, they'll forget to grab the years altogether. So if you were to just grab, and I'm holding down the control key to get the expenses, just grab that data and you look at your chart. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? You just have numbers on your x-axis, and that's no good. And you see series 1, series 2. That is also no good. So I always mark that wrong on tests or homework if I see the words series 1, series 2, because that doesn't mean anything to the person who's looking at your chart. So to do that correctly, you need to grab your x-axis labels, and then you want to grab the label for the data that you're charting. So that's what that should look like. All right, we'll create that chart. And now, how do I get this thing over to the other sheet? There is on the design ribbon of a selected chart, the design ribbon, there's a button right here called Move Chart. That's what you want to click on. And there's 2 ways that a chart can exist. One is as an object, and that's what we have right here as an object. It's just a piece of chart, if you will, inside of a worksheet. Okay, so we're going to make this an object in the financial summary sheet, and I'll hit OK. And so here it is, and now whatever the instructions are, you can move it to wherever you want to move it. Okay, the other way a chart can exist, and I'm going to click on it is to move chart. It can be its own chart sheet. And then right here you can type the name of the sheet. Okay, and what that looks like is it's its own sheet. Notice it has its own tab down here called Revenue and Expenses. And you don't see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the rows. You don't see columns. You don't see grid lines. This is a chart sheet. Okay, the reason I'm emphasizing that is because I'm going to put this back as an object. So I'm going to select my chart, go to the design ribbon, move it, and I'm going to go back to being an object in the financial summary sheet. Okay, on an exam or whatever, I tell students, take this chart and make its own chart sheet. And so what students do is go Control X for cut. They'll create a brand new sheet and Control V for paste, and this is not the right answer. This is still an object, and you've put it in a worksheet, just happens to be a blank worksheet, but that's not the same thing as a chart sheet, which I demonstrated just a second ago. So I will hit undo on that. Maybe, oh, it might not go back. Oh, I think it did. And I will right click and delete that sheet. Okay. So on financial summary, oh, bummer. Yeah, we lost our chart. So sometimes my data is already selected. It's almost quicker to recreate a chart than it is to figure out what happened. So there it is. I can move it real quick as an object in financial summary, hit OK, and now we're good. Now, by the way, this is also a chart that may lend itself well to a line chart. And one thing you can do is after you've created a chart, you think, oh, I want to see what this would look like as a line chart for those 10 years. You can right click on a chart and here's all these different things that you can do to that chart. Well, one of them is to change the chart type. Okay, so it's right here. It's also in the design ribbon right here. So after you've chosen clustered column, you may decide, oh, I want to see what this looks like as a line. And so there you'd, whoops, I hit the wrong line. So there you would see it as a line chart and you go, oh, that looks good. And you hit OK. And now you have a line chart. And then later your boss says, no, I like a clustered column. So you go, oh, bummer. So you click change chart type. You come back to column and you can change it back to column that quick. Now again, this chart has all the same elements. Now notice I did mention sometimes you'll see different values here for chart elements depending on the type of chart. But nonetheless, you can add axis titles. There's your data labels again. There's this thing called a data table. And so if you look, when I select that, it just puts your values down below the chart. So you may or may not want that. If you want your labels, obviously it starts to look very cluttered. So you're like, oh, that's probably not a good idea. Axis titles very often are. Now in this case, it's very obvious that these are years 1 through 10, and these are values in the thousands or whatever. So I may not put axis titles right now, but you could. Another one are grid lines. So you see this line going across the chart, the horizontal line. You can look at your grid line option here and notice that you got major vertical. And then you can turn on minor vertical and minor horizontal. I just said that an opposite of how I'm selecting, but there's minor vertical and minor horizontal. So you may want to play with those. And by the way, those can be formatted too. I could change the color of the line, the style of the line, the thickness of the line, all those different things, right? So if I click on more options, I'll end up with all the different things that I can do to a grid line. And the easiest way to learn this stuff is simply by playing with it and seeing what happens. In terms of editing the chart title, you just select it. You can select through here and then just type what they want you to type: projected revenue and expenses. Every chart should have a title, and every legend should not say Series 1, Series 2. That's the wrong thing to say. I'm not going to format every chart as demonstrated in the book because it's kind of getting into the same, be repetitious. But I will just do this one where I've clicked on the chart area, this white area, and they do have some kind of solid fill, and I think it's this light green. And then this area right here is called the plot area, or what I'm trying to select there. That's called the plot area. The outside area is chart. This inside area is plot area. Again, over here in my pane, I have plot area, and I can maybe go with no fill on that. Actually, no fill didn't seem to work, so maybe I'll go solid fill and just make it white. I haven't read the instructions that close. Let me go white. So, and then the other thing I'm looking at is some vertical grid lines. I've already demonstrated that, so I can go grid lines, click here, and then go major vertical. And so I'm looking similar to their picture that they had. And then the next chart we want to create is a stacked column chart, and it's over here on the same projected cash flow sheet. What I want to do is we're going to just look at this data. I want to create a column chart showing the percentage of the total of each of these elements of my expenses by year. So I'm going to select my labels again. Don't forget category plus the years. And now I'm going to hold down the control key. I'm not going to do the loan repayment because I didn't do that as part of this exercise. So I'll just grab those 4 elements. Okay. And now I'm going to go insert my chart again. It's a column, but this time I want a stacked column. So as you can see, it's showing all of the different elements that make up our expenses by year. So I'll click on that. I want to move it to its own as an object in our financial summary sheet. So we're going to have one sheet with all of our charts when we're done. And then again, if I wanted to format the chart area solid fill, I could put in that light green. Right, and then I could take the plot area. That's actually kind of hard to select. There's your plot area, solid fill, and I'll make that white. And anyway, I won't go any further than that. Although I will mention, notice what my legend says. It has actual values, and it doesn't say series 1, 2, 3, and 4. Before we move on to creating the line chart in the next book example, let's talk about editing our axes right here. So if I select that, my format pane is open, so it says format axes. And remember, another way to do that is under the format ribbon of the chart tool. You have a drop-down list, and so rather than clicking on the chart, you can grab the value or the element out of here. So I could say, oh, I want to do the vertical axes. Click on that, and then I want to format that selection. So here's your format axes, and what I want to demonstrate right here is, notice I have this selected. I can change the minimum and maximum values. So if I don't want it to start at 0, or maybe I want to increase it. So right now that's 2,500,000. Maybe I'll make it 3 million. Hit enter, and so I've edited the max value of my axes. I can also put the value, this isn't going to make sense in this case, but I'll put the values in reverse order so it makes my chart upside down. Sometimes that does make sense to do that, so just know that it's under format axes, value in reverse order. And you can also display units. I don't want to see that huge number, so it's in millions. Why don't I just say it's in millions? And so what that does is make your numbers smaller, but in this case that probably wasn't a good selection. So what if we just say it's in hundreds of thousands? So, and you'll notice it puts a label right there next to it. So if your numbers are ginormous, you can change the units at which they're being displayed. So now we're 3,000 thousands. And another common change on a clustered column chart is I can change the width between my categories, so this white space, and I can also change the width between the 2 columns within a category. So notice I've selected one of them, and now that my pane is already open, it says Format Data Series. And what you have is series overlap. So that's the 2 bars and how close they are to each other. And the gap width is the space between the categories. And so now I can run over here and make this 100%. And now look how all of a sudden my bars got fatter. And then I can do my overlap. I think if it's negative, and I'm just hitting the down arrow, and I'll hit enter. And now notice my bars aren't touching each other. So I've edited the series overlap, making it negative, which separates the bars, and I've edited my gap width. Now, of course, you have a slider here, so I can move it back up to 250. Oops, I'm on the wrong chart. Let me grab this one, Format Data Series, and now it's under this one right here. So now I can move my gap width up, and maybe I'll move, this to be a positive, no, not 50. We'll make it 13%. Okay, so this video's gotten kind of long. I'm going to end it here, and then we'll start in with some additional chart types in a second rendition of this.